Welcome to Brain Alpha. Today we're going to talk about how meditation isn't about resting your brain at all. It's actually about actively reshaping it.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off by busting a huge myth about meditation. Then we'll take a peek inside the brains of some serious experts, monks. After that, we'll get into what scientists call the brain's sweet spot. We'll look at 2 different ways to get your brain there, and finally, wrap it all up with why any of this actually matters for you and me.
All right, let's just jump right in. You know, when most of us think about meditation, what comes to mind? Probably something like completely emptying your head, right? Just thinking of nothing. But what if I told you that whole idea, that common picture we have, is actually a huge myth?
Yeah, it turns out that whole thinking about nothing thing couldn't be further from the truth. A really fascinating new international study has shown that when you're meditating, your brain isn't resting at all, it's actually buzzing with activity. We're talking about an active process that does way more than just quiet your thoughts. It fundamentally changes your brain. So how do they figure this out?
Well, you know, if you really want to understand what mastery looks like, you've got to go to the masters, right? And that is exactly what these researchers did.
So the team brought in 12 expert Buddhist monks, guys who have dedicated pretty much their entire lives to this practice.
And listen, when I say expert, I mean it. We're talking about an average of over 15,000 hours of practice for each one. That's an incredible amount of experience, and it gave the scientists this perfect, unique window into what long-term meditation really does to the brain.
Okay, so how in the world do you peek inside a monk's brain while they're meditating? Well, you use this amazing piece of tech called magnetoencephalography, or MEG for short. Just imagine a super sensitive helmet that can pick up on the tiny little magnetic fields your brain activity creates, and it does it in real time. So with this, the scientists could literally watch the monk's brain dynamics shift and change as they went through 2 very different types of meditation. And those 2 styles are pretty different. Professor Karim Jerby, one of the researchers, has this brilliant flashlight analogy. Think of samatha meditation as tightening the beam of a flashlight, focusing it really narrowly on just one thing, like your breath. It's all about intense, focused attention. Then you have vipassana, which is like widening that beam all the way out. You're not focusing on one thing, you're just openly aware of everything, sights, sounds, thoughts, without judging any of it. So, 2 really distinct mental workouts.
Now, this is where things get really cool. The scientists weren't just looking for brain activity. They were measuring something super specific, a concept they borrowed from physics called criticality. So what on earth is criticality? Well, you can think of it as the brain's ideal operating state. It's his perfect balance, this sweet spot, right on the edge between total order and complete chaos. It's a state where your brain is stable enough to be reliable, but also flexible enough to learn and adapt on the fly.
Let me break it down like this. If your brain has too much order, it gets rigid, stuck in its ways, and can't adapt well. If it has too much chaos, it just malfunctions, kind of like what happens during an epileptic seizure. Criticality is that perfect Goldilocks zone right in the middle, the sweet spot where your brain is at its absolute best for learning, processing information, and just being flexible.
So that brings us to the big question. How did those 2 different meditation styles affect the brain's criticality? Well, the results were pretty amazing, and they showed us 2 really different ways to get to a better functioning brain.
So get this. Both types of meditation made the brain signals more complex than just sitting there resting, but they worked in different ways. Samatha, the focus style, it made the brain more stable, less chaotic. But Vipassana, that open monitoring style, it actually pushed the brain closer to that peak performance sweet spot of criticality.
And this is where we get a real scientific plot twist. You see, for years, the going theory was that meditation cranks up these high-frequency gamma waves in the brain. But this study, it found the complete opposite. After they carefully filtered out all the background noise, they saw a decrease in gamma power. Whoa. So what does that mean? It suggests the brain isn't taking in more from the outside world, it's actually tuning it out, achieving this deep state of internal focus.
Okay, fine. So monks can get their brains into this super flexible, complex state. Awesome for them. But what does that have to do with the rest of us and our everyday lives? Why should you care if your brain is operating closer to this criticality thing?
This is the punchline. This is why it all matters. Having a brain that's more flexible, more adaptable, one that operates near that sweet spot, well, it comes with some seriously practical, real-world benefits. We're talking about better emotional self-regulation, which means less stress, less anxiety. It can help you break out of those nasty thought loops, the ones that just go around and around when you're feeling down. And it can even make you better at switching between tasks and remembering things. It really all comes down to what Professor Jerby said. Meditation isn't passive. It's an active workout for your mind. You're intentionally training your attention, and in doing that, you are literally reshaping how your brain functions, and that leads to very real improvements in your life and well-being.
So the big takeaway here is that meditation isn't about switching your brain off. It's about tuning it to a better, more efficient frequency. And that really makes you think, doesn't it? It makes you wonder, what other common ideas we have about our own minds is science going to flip on its head next? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and help us build the hype. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.